We are back, and the markets are giving back some of those gains they made yesterday. We have more fear out of the financial sector. We're going to be discussing the IPO for ARM Holdings. Very excited for that. All of it and more today on Money Never Sleeps.
I tell you, man, that delay sometimes, I don't know why.
Kevin,
Internet just did not want to send it through.
Thank God we got to see the intro video because it is undefeated. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here with us again. As we get going, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Nothing Kevin or I say is financial advice, not financial advisors. A few guys who love following the markets. So please do your own research for making any buys or sells. Kev, it's a choppy day in the markets right now. Crypto looks like it wants to, take a leg down, but they just keep kind of buying it back up and keeping it in this range. We saw markets were poised to open significantly higher this morning. That took a turn. Nvidia very briefly touched a new all-time high before now being down almost 3% on the day. We can see that Tesla is up slightly on the day. It's mixed across the board. Lowe's, another one that we've talked about before, having a very strong day on the back of some solid earnings there. So there are some positives at this time. We see that the shorter duration bonds are taking a really big run once again. I mean, the 6 month is at 5.531%. That's pretty crazy. 3 month at 5.46. The longer duration ones down just a touch on the day. We're seeing more and more countries divest from U.S. bonds, and that is driving the rates up as they're trying to sell those bonds to Americans, which if you are concerned about our country having another, shutdown here in September, which some people are, may not be the best idea to buy a 1 or a 3 month bond in advance of that. So just something to keep in mind. But what else are you looking at in the markets today, Kev?
Yeah, absolutely. I think crypto this morning was a little bit more surprising to me. I expected there to be more of a move with Bitcoin. It hasn't really moved. It seems like they're propping it up right around here. I think Mr. House threw in a good little article in our chat about how there's a lot of liquidations that'll be hit if it gets to 25K. So that's probably what's really interesting to me. I think there's a lot of people that are over leveraged in this position right now, and they're just trying to save some face or buy some time before they do get liquidated. Whether it's Binance, Venus, there's tons of them that are out there, and I think we're going to start seeing that as the price goes down. So crypto for me has been absolutely exhilarating for the past 24 hours. And the banking sector, man, I've been just doing a lot of reading last night and checking out everything since S&P downgraded, 5 more banks. It does not look good. It does not look good at all. And here's the thing with banking, it usually happens when you least expect it, right? I mean, let's look at Lehman Brothers. I don't think anyone after, Bear Stearns got pretty much bought out for what, like $2 a share or something back in March 2008, expected another collapse that big following that year. So right now, I'm a little bit cautious when it comes to banking. And then with crypto, I think that we are at a point where I think the move is down. It's just we're trying to prop it up as long as we can to hopefully save some people from massive liquidations.
Well, I don't know if we are trying to prop it up because I don't think we have that level of liquidity.
Sorry,
I
guys.
get what you're saying. The banking stuff is definitely concerning once again.
Yeah.
We didn't for 1 second believe that the end of it happened months ago. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and the Moody's downgrades, the S&P downgrades, the Fitch downgrades, the writing's on the wall, man. And it's get your house in order right now. Like I get it. You have to keep money in banks to pay bills, all that stuff, unfortunately. But I'd say at this point, the smallest amount you can logistically keep in there, the better. Like I'm kind of at the point where I'm just like, all right, I need to get some gold, like have some actual like gold bars on me for God's sake. Like keep those in a safe somewhere, bury them in the backyard, bury them in my neighbor's yard. It's a place they'll least expect it. But it's definitely concerning and something that I think people need to be aware of. We also got the news that Schwab is going to be, having layoffs, shutting down branches. that was also something that had been discussed quite a while ago. Concerns about Schwab, TD Ameritrade, some of these other big institutions, they're getting hit. And with these higher interest rates, it's causing them a lot of pain. And we haven't seen the full effects of that quite yet.
I think the one thing that a lot of people are really missing the point on, which might be the most dangerous thing, is that we always assume that these bigger banks are always safe, right? But as we've seen in the past, some of these banks with, deposits over, these accounts with over 250K. I mean, look at Silicon Valley, right? That was absolutely, everyone that was in that bank was wealthy. There's tons of people who had billions of dollars. I think there was tons that were above $10 billion, in that account, in that bank, for accounts in that bank. There's definitely a lot of these institutions that I think are probably in a worse position than some of the regional banks. And I think that, I mean, Schwab is no different. I think there's a majority of their accounts are like over 2 million, I want to say, or something like that. And when there's that much money in these banks obviously are they're doing whatever they can to make money for themselves too, right? But if there's sometimes too much money out there, there's a good chance that you could potentially I don't know, play play too much. You're playing a dangerous game when you got that much money, and you can get caught. You can get caught. I don't even know what I'm fucking saying at this point. Pretty much, you're gonna get caught with your pants down, and it's not
Yeah,
gonna be a
don't get
pretty
caught with your
sight.
pants down. Okay, that's
Not at
never
all.
a good idea. So stay safe out there. Let's talk about this ARM IPO a little bit, because this was a filing yesterday. This has been in the works for quite a while. If you remember, a couple years ago, Nvidia tried to acquire ARM. It was shot down by regulators over in the UK, I believe. And ever since then, SoftBank has been kind of preparing to have ARM head to IPO, and the filing took place yesterday. So we're looking at an IPO pricing in the second week of September. So we should know what that is going to look like. The expectation is that they're trying to raise anywhere from 8 to 10 billion in the IPO, which would put it as one of the largest tech IPOs in history. There's been some reports as well that maybe SoftBank is looking at holding a little bit more of this and not trying to get the full 8 to 10 in the IPO, but still it's going to be a pretty big one. The largest IPO since Rivian in October of 2021, and the third largest tech IPO ever, potentially behind Alibaba and Facebook. So I think it's really interesting. We have time, we got over a month before this is going to actually even go to market. So we'll have time to kind of dive into a little bit more and figure out a strategy around that, because I do think that trading IPOs is very interesting, can be kind of chaotic, but we're not telling anyone to do anything financially, blah, blah, blah. But let's look at some of the charts for some of these other IPOs, other companies that have IPO'd and what they have done. So Kev, if you want to pull them up on your end, and we can kind of talk through some of these. How about, as we're doing this, let's go reverse. Let's go Rivian from October of 2021. The big thing with ARM is that they are a chip maker that does chips for cell phones. And they're also having a big focus on AI. Hey, look at that. Another AI company that has a super hyped up IPO. But, I think we can kind of just look at some of these other ones and kind of see, what was the action that happened with it. We have to take into account macro factors as well. But when we see this Rivian one, I mean, that's an IPO that it started off super hot, and it is just flatlined over the last, more than a year now.
Absolutely. And this is one that came out at a perfect time, right? It was at the height of the bull market. It was literally November 2021 for
It's the
crypto.
absolute peak of the bull market.
Exactly, and that's why I'm not surprised we see this second week in the market. Look at how much it shot up, right? I mean, it looks like it closed the first week of its IPO in, what is that? It's $129 after opening up at 106, and the week after it made the height of 179 and it closed at 128. So absolutely insane that it's. I mean, it pretty much closed back to back weeks right around the same place, but we saw how much that spiked up, and that might just be euphoria, right? I remember, I mean, we'll look at some of the other ones too, but it seems like IPOs and even when ICOs, like I remember when Terra Luna launched Luna to what was it, the new Luna token, that was at
Yeah.
like $18 within the first 10 minutes. And then look at it now, it's pretty much worthless. I'm not saying it is, but when these things come out, they're so overhyped and people get so excited. I think the people that get hurt the most are usually retail who try and buy into the IPO or the ICO. And I think institutional players know that, okay, we're going to let this cool down. And if you let this cool down, just a little bit, I mean, you pretty much were able to get in at a pretty good price, right? It went all the way from the height at 179, and we can say that the low of this entire move is all the way down here around $11.90.
It's a big move down.
Yeah.
It will be interesting, like I said, to take some of the macro factors into effect. By the time this ICOs, will have another Fed meeting out of the way, we'll have more data out of the way. We'll have these Nvidia earnings. So, will there still be so much hype around AI? That is definitely something to weigh in the decision-making process here. Let's go to Alibaba next. They IPO'd in 2014, $25 billion raise right out the gate there. Let's zoom in a little bit more and kind of see what that looked like. And then we can move to Meta after that.
Absolutely. So we can definitely see that this is a very different story than Rivian, right? We can see that the ICO definitely looked like it went down initially pretty fast after the first week. But if we look at this in the macro context, Alibaba was a big winner, even if he did get in at some of these high levels, right? It's absolutely insane to see this take off. But then again, where we are now is a different story. China's in a very different place than where they were back in 2014. But this is, another case of where, there's a lot of hype when it first starts. But I mean, if we look at this on the monthly, like the weekly going into the first few months of this IPO, you'd see that it came down significantly, even from where it opened, right? We opened at $92.70. And we, in the first few months, the low that we got was $57.20. So, I mean, that's what, 30 something dollars there that it dropped from the open to the low in the first 3-4 months of it being publicly offered. It's a pretty big move, and there's a good opportunity there if you were able to just be patient, just like Rivian, to pick up accumulate some good stock there. And eventually it did take off, but I think Rivian also came out at a pretty bad time as the bear market was beginning. 2014, 2015, I can't remember exactly what that bull market was, or if that was a bull or a bear market. I think it was a bull market, right? Because it was post 2011. It's kind of like just steadily climbing. So yeah, that makes sense why this probably had a little bit of a better trajectory following that IPO and the years that followed. Rivian again came out at a really bad time, and that's probably why we haven't seen any exponential growth in the time that it's been trading at on the New York Stock Exchange.
Let's go ahead and take a look at Facebook next. Now, Meta, stupid name. But let's look at that next, and then we can wrap it up with Coinbase. I think the Coinbase parallel is interesting due to the fact that it came out at a time, there's still so much uncertainty around regulation in regards to crypto, but there's also a lot of uncertainty in regards to regulation around AI. That conversation is just getting started. So I think that also makes for a suitable parallel to kind of compare movements. Once again, taking into account when the IPO happened, how the broader market was looking. But let's go back in time to Meta. They look like they started off, it was exciting, but it got hit pretty hard off the bat.
Absolutely. It was at $42 that it opened at. The height of that first week went to 45. And, after the first few weeks, into the first few months, obviously we put in the low somewhere right around here in September of 2012. That low was $17.55. So from $42, we went to $17.55. It's a big move. Obviously that's, pretty good entry level if you saw this at the beginning, came down here, and they kind of traded sideways for a little bit, and then we did see that it did start to take off. Now, when we look at this and how bad it came off the initial public offering, a lot of that probably has to do with still people who are very skeptical of the stock market and the economic factors of what happened in 2008 leading into 2011. Again, we had a credit downgrade for the US back in 2011. I think a lot of people were very hesitant to enter markets because once again, there's just such a clear reminder of what happened, and it was so volatile in that period of time that I think a lot of people probably didn't even have a lot of faith in tech stocks, even just thinking about what happened in the dot-com bubble. So I think that this makes sense why it kind of came down here. But then we saw that from like
At the same time,
2012.
though, real quick, I wanted to just say in those first 3 months, because that came out May 2012, I just looked it up. The Nasdaq as a whole was up 13% during those first 3 months that Meta was out there. So Meta took a hit, but the rest of Nasdaq was going in the opposite direction. So kind of interesting to look at those differences there back in 2012.
Definitely interesting, right? I mean, again, that might be a bad thing for Meta too, right? The Nasdaq's up that much, and then it comes and there's an IPO. People might be like, all right, this is a buy the rumor, sell the news event. People might have just been shorting this thing right off the beginning. So yeah, I mean, wonderful returns too if you were able to buy it at $17, a few months later in September of 2012. And if we see here, let's see, how much we went. Let's take the low to where the high is just to see how much it came up. Oh, fuck, guys, look, that's insane how much it shot up. Let's go from down here around $17. There we go to the heights. That's is that 21,000? No, it's 2,114% that it shot up from the low there to where we currently are. But again, that's a period of time, right? That's 2012 all the way to 2021. So what is that? Roughly 9 years or something like that, where it just went up nonstop. Again, I think even though that we had a drop in the first few weeks of its IPO, I think that Meta probably came out at a perfect time, right? There was a period of time in the US after the Great Recession where people were just buying nonstop, kind of reminiscent of the Roaring Twenties, where people could pretty much make money just putting their money in the stock market, and everything just went up. Tech just absolutely took off in the 2010s, and this being at the forefront of it early on, maybe we had a little bit of pain in the beginning, but I think that it was just in the perfect place at the perfect time, and we just saw it absolutely rip. That's why even though if we look back even down here, sure it was down from, let's say, May 2012 to July 2013, it hadn't crossed where it originally, started trading at. It once it did break that, I mean, guys, by the time it was, let's say, September 2014, 2 years later, it was trading at $80. So it was double of what it originally came out as. So it's definitely really interesting to see how time is important. I think that we are seeing a trend of where as soon as it's offered, it drops, and then after it drops, there tends to be a push to the upside if economic conditions are in a place where consumers feel they can, put money towards these things. Companies feel like they could definitely invest into the market, and we should look at Coinbase because this is also a pretty interesting one too. Because Coinbase, I believe, it was like $350, correct? That it was
I
IPO'd
put
at.
it a pretty high price, and it got smacked down
Yeah,
immediately.
I'm just gonna look at this in this is the macro view, right? This is since the beginning. And this came out in April of 2021, which again, arguably one of the worst times for them to IPO because we remember that Bitcoin just absolutely crashed into May of that year, right? We had just put in, I think, 60K and it was starting to come down. I think Bitcoin crashed all the way down to 27K at that same time. And if you're an exchange that's dealing with crypto, then that's probably going to be it's going to affect your price. So I think this was extremely frothy. People were, when it first offered, the IPO came out, a lot of people were really excited. Bitcoin was just at 60K, comes in, absolutely tanks. We could see that the May, 21 absolutely dropped considerably. And it kind of just rallied slowly into the height of the bull market for crypto, where we hit around 69K. And then once we hit 69K, straight down, guys. It's, the low of it was actually put in back in January of this year, around $26 or so. And we could see that, the price of Bitcoin pretty much is correlated with the stock price of coin, right? We could see that in July of 2023, we put in a pretty good high, local high. It went to $111 after being down at roughly around 50. That's probably because Bitcoin shot up to 31K. So we can see that a lot of this is correlated with crypto itself. Obviously, if crypto does well, Coinbase is going to do well because, users are going to be using the platform. They're going to be making money off, trading fees, some of their products that they offer other than just, trading, buying, selling, storing crypto for you. This is definitely pretty correlated to the crypto market itself. And even though it seems like things come out at the right time, everything seems great, nothing can go wrong. We tend to see that this tends to be a local top for some moves in the market. And this is no different than Rivian. And I think that's, once we get into another bull market, this will be very different. But IPO right off the bat, just right down, and then it's just going to follow the trend of everything that crypto was following, or was just following crypto in general.
Yeah, the ARM one, it's once again, we have to see what the sentiment is around AI at the time. We have to see what the macro conditions are like. They said that they'll be setting the price of the IPO second week of September. I have to imagine it'll actually go to market a few weeks, fairly shortly after that. No idea yet whether or not I'm going to participate in the IPO, if I'm going to be buying some right away. But ARM is a company that I think has a ton of potential. I think they're going to do some really great things. We'll dive deeper into them, but if the price is right, I would like to get some ARM shares, but at the same time, it seems pretty, from looking historically at some of these, unless something incredible happens that sends the whole market on a bull run, it's probably an okay bet to just kind of wait a little bit, let other people mess around with that, and wait for the hype to wear off, and then start to slowly pick up some shares. That might be what I end up doing. Not sure yet. We'll talk about it more as we go along.
I already have my decision what I'm going to do with ARM. Again, I think just looking at some of these charts, that was a great thing that we decided to do today, because where we are right now, and we could put in context where everything else has been in the market. Again, Coinbase, Bitcoin was just at 60K back in April of 2021. Rivian at the height of the bull market in November of 21. If I look at Nvidia and assume that, okay, this is in the same sector as what ARM is producing and that they're going to be offering, I'm assuming that we're at near a local.
It's different because Nvidia's chips are for computers. ARM's chips are for phones.
Doesn't matter. I still think that regardless, any chip maker at this point is going to be in a pretty everything's following, I think, Nvidia in the tech sector for right now. And again, we put in all-time highs today, and barely all-time highs. But I think it's going to be really important what tech does, and Nasdaq obviously. But I think Nvidia is going to drive this market. And if we could see that we're kind of at the top of this frothy place where everyone's really excited about tech and AI and chips, and obviously chips, regardless, whether China's excited about them or U.S. retail is like, oh, I'm going to make so much money off of this. I think that there's too much noise around it right now, where I'm personally just going to sit back and let everything play out. I sat back during Coinbase, and I'm glad I did. I was interested in buying Coinbase, but when I saw it was 350, I was like, hell no, I'm going to sit back. Seems frothy. It was a good decision by me on my part. And I think that this is another thing I'm just going to personally sit out. I think a lot of the data that we've seen historically has been pretty important. And I think when the market seems most euphoric and we get a new toy to play with, usually that toy is less than desired by a few weeks later.
All right, let's wrap up the conversation there. We can look at a little bit of crypto real quick, but then we were going to call it a day. Anything jumping out at you? It looks like crypto is trying to make that move down. We're seeing BTC at 25.8. ETH has been kind of slowly moving towards 1620. What is catching your eye? We see total market cap it's just hanging on to that $1 trillion level. It's on its way to going.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about in these last few minutes?
It should be under $1 trillion. I think, well, again, we're counting stable coins in all of these, right? That's probably what's holding up a lot of these total market caps. But I'm looking at Bitcoin right now because I was talking about yesterday that 24K level seems very lucrative. I think that's going to be a place where we're going to go down to. We're going to finish this 5-wave move to the downside that we began, in this pretty impulsive move down, right? I mean, if I look at this, I could say like wave 1, 2. Wave 3 is all the way down here. Wave 4 is the bounce, and I anticipate a wave 5 to come down, and that pretty much takes us to the bottom of this first corrective move. And it's the first move that, 5-wave move that brought us out of this parallel channel. Now, we are going to see a bit of a correction at some point. Again, I think that's going to be short-lived, though. And right now, we're just seeing this battle because we know that the further down it goes, the more liquidations are going to process. And if Bitcoin goes down, then BNB is going to naturally go down. I think that a lot of that is whether the rumors are true that Binance is selling any of their Bitcoin for, BNB to hold that level up to prevent liquidations, or it's the Venus protocol, or any of these other, places that have loans out there that have Bitcoin as collateral. They're going to do everything they can to prop up this market. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. But we see how impulsive these moves are. I mean, if we look at crypto in general, like across the board today, it's pretty damn red, right? We're looking at Matic's down 4%. I'm just gonna pull that up right now. And these things, and I was looking at these wave counts, obviously, they're a little bit maddening to look at, but they're playing out pretty well, right? I expected, this wave E to come down. We're not below the wave C, so I anticipate there to be a little bit more. And again, I think that's in line with Bitcoin, going closer to that 24K level. We're at 25,800 right now. It looks like it's starting to drop, just broke 25 or 25.7. Insane moves right now. It's going to be pretty rapid. I think it's going to be an exciting day, regardless of whatever the price is at the end of the day. And I think that we're seeing that there's a lot of selling pressure from people. It's something that we need to be keeping an eye on because, again, anything can happen in the market. Anything can turn. I'm going to pull up, Ethereum. Ethereum is looking at like it's 1623 right now. It's down about 2.64% on the day. I still think that there's probably a good chance that it's going to come down lower than that 15. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down and tests maybe. Let me see this. That's never mind. Wrong line there.
All your lines.
Yeah, I know there's too many lines, and this is a macro one. But again, it's playing the macro lines pretty good. Wave 1, wave 2, maybe a wave 3, wave 4, wave 5. This is a long one. Then we anticipate a correction, but we're seeing that these markets are definitely breaking right now, right? We're seeing that everyone that's trying to buy the dips can't buy fast enough, so there's more sellers than buyers, so it's just going to keep going lower. We got whales that are out there that are over leveraged, and they're just trying to, keep themselves from being liquidated, hoping that the market turns around. There's someone comes in to buy. No one's coming in to save you at this point. It's absolutely insane. I do want to look at one thing though, because crypto, again, we think that it's going to go below 25K. I genuinely believe that it could wick down there real quick, or it could, bounce off there and trade up from there. But I think that we're going to see somewhere in the 24K range for Bitcoin, closer to that lower 24K. But I do want to pull up some banks, because the banking sector is scaring me right now. And there's a few things that I want to look up. Like I said, I think that some of the bigger banks, mid-range to bigger banks, are the ones that we need to be keeping an eye on. This is HSBC. This is it's a British bank. However, it has tons of exposure to China, and we're seeing that liquidity is drying up everywhere, right? And this bank is definitely a bigger bank. It's an international bank. And the thing that scares me when I look at this on the weekly is that we're putting in this massive bear flag right here, right? And sure, it's coming to oversold on the weekly. A lot of this is because we got these red candles earlier on here. A lot of this is from Evergrande, but this thing is pretty overbought on the monthly. Let's pull it up. We're overbought on the monthly. We're probably going to see, we got rejected off the 200 EMA. We didn't even test it, but you could see that it just absolutely sold off once the Evergrande news came out. I think this thing is going to break, right? And if it does break, I would anticipate it going below $17.95 per share. It's currently at $37.35. And the thing that scares me is that no one's talking about this either, but the Hang Seng, which is the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, it's been, look at this monthly candle. This is absolutely terrible. It came all the way down. You got the 15 to 200 EMA right here. And if we look at this on the daily, we can see that we've had pretty bad losing streak with this recently, right? Not every single day, but we've had gaps, massive gaps, and it's just been going straight down, right? I know it's oversold on the daily, but if we look at the weekly, it's putting down, it's finding rejection on this 50 moving average. That means it's definitely going down on the monthly, in my opinion. Look at this. It was 1800 last Thursday, and currently it's at 17,791. It's moving pretty fast, and I think that banks that have exposure to China, which HSBC is one, and I'm not hearing a lot about it, not hearing really anything about it right now, is concerning to me. I think that this is a bank that we need to keep an eye on. I'm not saying that it's going to go under, but I do think that the China situation is a lot worse than we were anticipating. Again, we were talking about this a while ago, that there was going to be a sell-off of treasuries in the U.S. and bonds and stuff like that, and that's what we're seeing now. And a lot of that is coming from, international debt markets, and China and Japan are two that are probably selling off a lot of those just to protect their economy. We've seen that China's taking a pretty good stance to, protect the yuan right now. It's getting wild here, but no, it's nowhere to be seen on the news. It's not the focus of anything. I think that we're seeing a lot of the Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell saying that the banking sector is fine. We don't know that, guys. We really don't know that. I think that there's a lot of banks that are in deep shit right now. Not just regional. I'm going to give you a list of banks that I'm keeping an eye on. I'm not saying they're going to go under, but I'm just keeping an eye on. I think Schwab is one that I'm keeping an eye on. I think KeyBank is one. HSBC, BMO Harris. There's a lot of these banks that aren't the regional ones, but they're pretty big. And I think they've definitely had more pain from these rates being so high and these exposures to the commercial real estate, and even just like international, like anyone has any exposure to China right now should be extremely worried and trying to offload that. And a lot of these commercial real estate loans, they can't really offload. It's debt that no one's willing to take over right now. So it's really scary in the banking sector. I said that months ago that I think Silicon Valley is the Bear Stearns. I don't know who's going to be the Lehman Brothers. In that case, someone has to be AIG as well. But this is really, this is a cautionary tale. We should be worried about this. I'm not saying it's going to happen soon, but when it does happen, it's going to be without you knowing. You're going to wake up one Tuesday morning, and next thing you know, it's just going to be a massive, massive red candle. This is going to be, I think that we're not done here, and I would definitely be keeping an eye on which banks seem the most prone to collapse. There's a lot. I don't know. I'm not going to say too much. I don't want to hurt
Chicken
anyone.
Little over here.
I am Chicken Little. Big.
Chicken Little over here. You're the Ryan Gosling of this show. That's for damn sure.
Hey, he had a good
All right.
payday.
I think that absolutely. I think that is going to wrap it up for today. Appreciate everybody for being here. We'll be back tomorrow a little bit later than normal. We're going to be live for the Nvidia earnings. So we're going to go live 15 minutes before the markets close. So 3:45 Eastern is our planned start time tomorrow. We'll be on. We'll kind of talk about how the markets played out during the day. We expect that'll be about 15 minutes after close. We'll get the Nvidia earnings. Should be interesting to read through those, see the market reaction. It could go, we don't know. They said that they're expecting to have strong Q2 earnings, but the expectations of that from the market remain to be seen. Like, we know that the share prices yesterday took a huge run up. We're seeing a little bit of that pullback continue today, down about 3%. But it's going to be an interesting one for sure. So join us for that. It'll be a good time. Once again, if you have not yet, hit those buttons down below. Like, comment, subscribe, share us out on social. That's going to wrap it up, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you tomorrow.
Take care, everyone. Stay safe.